Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful and historic neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. We are so happy that you are staying safe. Our guest today is Michelle Person. She is here to tell us about her company, Just Like Me Books, and her new book, Nathaniel English and Leaders of the Revolution. Before Michelle joins us, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by a fantastically fun read-aloud book that has 6 cranky relatives, 3 mean dinosaurs, and 1 very cranky Tyrannosaurus. Of course, we are talking about our friend Stephen Joseph's wonderful book, The Last Surviving Dinosaur, the Tyrannosaurus. This book is playfully illustrated by Andy Case, and it tells the story of how the dinosaurs became extinct. And it is not that life-ending meteor shower thing the paleontologists are always talking about. No! The Tyrannosaurus is so very cranky that she makes all the other bigger and meaner dinosaurs disappear. That is, until she comes across the only dinosaur who is immune to her incessant complaining, the Tyrannosaurus. These 2 dinosaurs evolved into humans, and that is where cranky people come from. This really is a wonderful book, and it's really timely, too, because The Last Surviving Dinosaur reminds readers to be mindful of when and how often they complain. It's a lesson everybody can learn from and benefit from right now. The Last Surviving Dinosaur by Stephen Joseph is available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other sites where books are sold. Joining us on the line right now from the Cleveland area in the beautiful state of Ohio. She is the author of a great book called Nathaniel English and Leaders of the Revolution. Please welcome to the show, Michelle Person. Michelle, how are you?
Hi, Jed. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited to talk to you about Nathaniel English, find out who Nathaniel was, and find out about the other leaders of the revolution.
Okay, I can't wait to share.
All right. So what's the book about?
So Nathaniel English and Leaders of the Revolution is a book that I try to, this particular series, what it's about is the Haitian Revolution, but also how students are able to look at history and figure out how it relates to them in real life. So in the book, the student Nathaniel and his friends are upset about the fact that the school lunches, well, they suck. And his mother he's telling his mother about, why they suck, and he's giving all his reasons why. And his mother's like, well, you could try to do it yourself. And he's like, well, would they listen to me? And she mentions, well, the people who make change aren't always listened to at first. And she references Toussaint Louverture, who was the leader of the Haitian Revolution in Haiti, one of the first successful rebellions of slavery in the Western Hemisphere. And so as he's learning about that particular historical figure, he's also learning how he can change his current circumstances.
Wow, I love this. I love stories that mix in history. We've talked a lot here on the show that a lot of history classes are just boring, and kids are just getting fed facts, and they're expected just to repeat those facts back. I love it when an author can bring a story to life and to really help it resonate with kids.
That's definitely my goal.
Yeah. What attracted you to these historical characters?
I started out writing a different series, and it was strictly for entertainment, my Kai and the Daddy Man series. And as I started writing, I learned about, and I guess I should have known this, and I didn't. My brother-in-law is a a librarian, he brought it to my attention, the fact that a child has a better chance of seeing a dinosaur or a talking hippo in a story than they do seeing a character of color. Across the board. So I was writing a book for, just to tell about the story that my daughter and her father in their relationship. But it's a cute story. It's just for entertainment. It's, something for people to read and get the warm fuzzies. But I am an educator. I am a principal. I was in the classroom for 11 years, and I've been as an administrator for like the last, I think 7 or 8 at this point. And the educator in me needed to do something in that same area, that same arena where I was teaching. So what I decided to do was look for stories that I know as an educator are not often taught in our schools for a variety of reasons. And I was going to put them in books and put them out there. And so the first story in the Nathaniel English series was the story of King Mansa Musa, who was the richest man who ever lived, by all accounts. He was the king of Mali in West Africa. And then I did a story on Huey P. Newton, who was the founder and leader of the Black Panther Party. And my third story, the one that we're talking about today, is the story of Toussaint Louverture, the leader of the Haitian Revolution.
Wow, what an amazing journey. Now, you've started a company called Just Like Me. Am I right about that?
Yes, Just Like Me books.
And when I was on your website, there is some really, and you kind of alluded to it, the fact that a kid has a better chance of seeing a dinosaur than a character of color. You noted some interesting statistics on your homepage. Can you share a little bit of those statistics?
Just that, like I said, that there is a overwhelmingly, statistically, off the top of my head right now, the statistics, they've gotten a little bit better. So at one point, I think it was like 16%. I think, in the lab, the statistics are always about a year behind. So I think, on the website, they quote the 2017 statistics, say like 16% of all children's books have a character of color. And then they break it down even further in terms of, there's a 0.09% chance of seeing a Native American and a 0.1% chance of seeing an Asian American, or something like that. I think currently it was 16%. We might have climbed up to like 19%. But it's not, there hasn't been this huge shift into making sure that all, colors and different cultures are represented. So, our goal, like as I went into my publishing journey and I learned more about the publishing industry and children's books in general, I just decided that I wanted to make a place where kids could see themselves represented in literature. And hence the Just Like Me. So when you open a book, I'd like the kids to say, hey, there's a character that looks like me. And I recognize that I don't write for all genres or cultures or, diversities, ethnicities. So I have partnered with a bunch of different authors who that's also their mission. They write for different reasons. And so my goal is to just be the gathering place for that diversity.
I know from speaking to my wife, who's a teacher in the Boston Public School system, to some of her friends that are principals and other educators, I have a sense of how important it is for kids to see themselves in the pages of books. But can you share with us why you think it's so important for kids to be able to see themselves in books?
So one of the other issues that you have when you're dealing with diverse populations is a lot of time there's an achievement gap between students who come from diverse backgrounds, lower socioeconomic status, and their white peers. And that's partially because, which is a whole other conversation, whole other show, they don't get read to, and so there's this word gap. There's this 300 million word gap or a 3 million word gap, where they hear 3 million fewer words than their counterparts before they get to kindergarten. So when you're dealing with that word gap, and you're trying to catch a kid up and you put a book in front of them that they cannot relate to, they are already frustrated because the teacher has this expectation that, well, you're a little behind, so we got to hurry up, sweetie. And you want them to hurry up and they don't like the content, they're going to shut off. And it happens all the time. But if you can put something in front of them where they are interested and engaged in and they want to read it, you can overcome some of that deficit. And if you can get them excited about reading and show them that there are characters and stories that they can relate to, you can kind of push through that gap a little bit faster and get them where they need to go.
Yeah, well, I can tell you from experience, one of the very first books that was submitted to our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program was Jennifer Swanson's Astronaut Aquanaut. And she was kind enough to donate a few books. She knew that my wife was a teacher and that her best friend was a principal. And so she donated a couple of these beautiful books that were published by National Geographic. And when my wife's best friend brought the books into her school, which is 90% kids from Central America and South America, these kids went crazy because a lot of the astronauts and aquanauts that are pictured in the book are scientists of color. They're from different parts of the world. And it was so exciting. My wife's friend gave me a call, and she was telling me, and I heard the noise and the excitement of the kids in the background. So, yeah, I can see that. It's not being a person of color, not growing up with that in my life. I can't speak from personal experience, but I've seen it. I've seen kids and how they've really just jump for joy when they see people who look like them succeeding and being the star of books.
Yes, it makes a huge difference. I can guarantee you probably some of those kids might not have been on grade level, but they attempted to read that book because it interests them. Yeah. And that's the point of Just Like Me. If you can interest them, you can teach the reading, but they have to be interested.
That's something I think is incredibly important, and I'm really happy that you said that. We talk a lot here on the show with different educators who are writers, and that's one of the things that I've encountered doing educational magic shows. I've been into schools and 30 years. I've heard so many, the kids loved your show, this and that. But I've also heard some teachers come up to me and say, "Why is your show so fun? It should be more serious." And I'm a clown. I'm doing magic. It's kind of not what I'm supposed to do. But it's like this idea that if it's fun, it can't be valuable. That the kids should just sit down and learn this stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's such the wrong attitude. And those teachers probably, we were talking off air, those teachers probably are at the end of their retirement. They are coming of retirement age, and they probably need to be walking their way out of the classroom, because that attitude is what keeps so many kids disengaged.
Mm-hmm. Do you see that attitude changing? Are younger teachers coming in with the understanding that they really need to engage the kids, that it's, they're just as responsible to make the information engaging as it is for kids to actively engage with the material?
Oh, Jed, you're asking questions that are going to lead to other shows. So I definitely feel that my younger teachers really understand that sense of the joy factor, is what we call it in education. And I definitely do think that our teachers understand the need for that joy factor. I also think, unfortunately, though, a lot of our teachers are not prepared for the students that they're going to meet, and their joy factor quickly fizzles out. And they are very easily turned to the dark side, if you will, by those teachers who think that learning, why is it fun? It shouldn't be fun. We don't have time for fun. But I see the hope and the wanting to do well in their eyes when they come in, and then it kind of fizzles out. And there are a host of reasons behind that, but I would say that yes, they do understand that it's very important, and they try. So I have to give them credit.
Well, that's good, and you're absolutely right. There could be 3 or 4 shows on these different subjects, and I don't think you'd win a lot of friends. Well, you'd win some friends and make some enemies. Right. As we're talking about that. I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about Nathaniel English and the Leaders of the Revolution. The neighborhood that I celebrate here on the show, Reedville, which is part of a larger neighborhood called Hyde Park here in the city of Boston, it is 77% African American, and most of those folks are from Haiti. And they're great neighbors. We have a lot, and I know that Haiti is an island. It shares an island with the Dominican Republic. They suffered an earthquake many years ago. But I don't know much more about Haiti, and you don't hear a lot about the history of Haiti. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about these characters that you introduce us to in the book.
So actually, because it is a children's book and I wanted to leave, there is so much that another show, Jed. You have so many great show topics. So there's a lot of information that, it is written for, pre-K, for about the 3rd through 5th grade level. And what I wanted the kids to take away from it is the feeling of hope, and the idea that even one person can change a system that is unfair, because that's essentially the message behind the story. But just the things that I don't talk about in the book is, I do allude to it at the very end. So Nathaniel he is successful in his quest to get better school lunches. But in his quest, he goes and he does some research on his own, and he's very disappointed to find out that, Toussaint Louverture actually did not live to see a free Haiti. He, after, manning the revolution and, get through many, many years of talks with the French reneged essentially on what they said they were going to do and their promises. And they went and they took Toussaint Louverture, and he died in a French jail. And eventually, and the revolution was continued on, but by that point, too much damage had been done. The revolution was too far spread. And there was no going back. So eventually the French did have to go ahead and say, okay, we will grant you your freedom. But what they did, as a result, almost to punish them, was, Haiti had to pay, the French millions of dollars, for their freedom, which immediately sent the reason that the French fought so hard against the revolution was because they were a stronghold. They had tons of money and resources. And when the French had to pay, essentially, when Haiti had to pay for their freedom, it sent them into, a debt that to this day they have not been able to climb out of. And it's become a structural, systematic problem that you can trace all the way back to, the revolution and how it ended. So it's actually a very relevant story. And when you talk about, possibly reparations, I know that's a conversation now that's been going on with the Democratic, nominees in the conventions, and reparations in this country. Talk about reparations. Haiti was significantly impacted by, because they wanted to rule themselves, and they had to pay for it, and they have been paying for it ever since. And so when the devastation that you just spoke about in the earthquakes, you're devastating an already devastated landscape. So that's what makes it even more crushing and also depressing. And many people don't know that. They just think, oh, well, those people there, they must not, their country is so poor, it's all their fault. It really isn't. It literally is a direct relation to the fact that they revolted against French rule, and they have been paying for it for hundreds of years.
This is what I love about children's literature. I've heard, I've mentioned this before, and I don't think he meant it, so I'm not going to mention his name again. But a famous author came on. I heard him on a podcast, and he said, "Gee, I read 25 books this weekend." And the host said, "Wow!" And he said, "Yeah, they're kids' books. I was reading to my grandkids." How do people write these things? And just kind of dismiss children's literature, but children's literature can spark so many conversations. Sitting down, and this isn't necessarily a book that you're going to sit down and snuggle up on the couch and read aloud with your kids. But Nathaniel English and Leaders of the Revolution, it sounds like a fantastic book to co-read with your kids, to pick up two copies. And just think of the conversation, talking about standing up for yourself, working together, speaking up for people who are being hurt, talking about how certain peoples and certain countries are still being abused by richer countries. So many important conversations can come from reading these books.
Yes, definitely. And it definitely, it's a springboard to other conversations. And it's definitely, and I like what you said. You could co-read, like if you wanted to read it, like me to read a chapter to maybe a first or second grader who has the comprehension, but maybe not the reading capacity. Mm-hmm. That could be an idea, but definitely the idea of reading it with your third, fourth, or fifth grader. I think it's a great idea.
Now, one of the things you mentioned earlier on is this word gap, and that kids from more affluent backgrounds, kids whose parents have been maybe college educated, have more free time to spend with their kids, or maybe can pay for a caregiver to come in and read with their kids. They're coming to school with, hearing 1 million or 3 million more words than their other students who are coming from less advantageous backgrounds. One of the things that I've tried to do here on the show is to really kind of reach out to those communities and inspire families to read more. And I asked my wife's friend, who again is a principal serving these kids, and I said, "What can I do? What can my show do to inspire these families?" And her first response to me was, "You don't understand. Like, a lot of the parents in my school, they can't read." Or if they can read, they can't read English. And if they can read English, well, they're working 3 jobs, and they don't really have the time to come home and sit down and read with our kids. So one of the things we've tried to do is just celebrate the fact that all the time, the activity that you spend with your kids, if you're cooking together, if you're creating together, just sitting down and talking about a TV show together, that's valuable, and that should be celebrated. But can you think of any ways that we can support families who are struggling and have all these challenges, ways that we can support them and help them spend more time reading with their kids?
So I think you have to look at the bigger. There's lots of ways. There's a organization here. It's called the Kids Book Bank, and to address that for that same reason, they just realized they just want, their whole goal is just to get books in kids' hands, and so they collect tons and tons and tons of books, and they get volunteers to come and sort them. And any school in Cleveland and the surrounding area can put in a book request. Now it's a hodgepodge of books. You can't request like 15 Harry Potters. It doesn't work like that. But you just put books in the hands of kids. Kids, ironically, I mean, it sounds crazy. They will look at a book over and over and over again. And even if they can't 100% read it, they will sit there, and if it is engaging to them, they will make up words. They will find somebody to read it to them. They just need the access to actually have the book in their hand. Books are actually pretty expensive. Yeah. When there's no disposable income, that a book, buying a $10, $15 book is not something that, cause $10, $15 could be 2 bus trips. $10, $15 can be a copay to go see your doctor. $10, $15. So there isn't a lot of expendable income, but if you can put books in their hands for free, that's one way to definitely help out. Volunteering at schools always need but you go tell a principal you want to volunteer to read in a classroom, they will welcome you with open arms and throw you a ticker tape parade. Just the idea that we can get kids excited about just books and reading for fun. In terms of, I loved when you said like what can you do with your shows? Anything that sparks conversation. The one thing we're working really hard on, I mentioned that I'm a principal as well in my building, is getting kids to talk about their thoughts out loud. So if after a show or during your show, you present an idea to them and you have them, think about it and then turn and talk to a partner about it, that you're growing what we call their schema, their worldview, their understanding. And so then what happens when you grow your schema is you are more likely to be able to relate ideas, thoughts, feelings to books when you come across with themes when you come across them, and it makes the books more meaningful. Quick sidebar, like my daughter, my youngest daughter, she's 3, and we do bedtime stories every night. And, there was a story about a little boy, and they were playing a sport. And immediately she said, "Mommy," she said, they play ball like TJ plays ball. TJ is my older son, and he's, on his high school's football team. So immediately she could make a connection to the real world and to the story we were reading, and it made the book not that she cared about, I think she likes that book more now than she did because she was able to make a personal connection.
Yeah.
And just those experiences that you're able to provide with your music, with your magic show, where that gets them thinking about what they're seeing and what they've learned and what they've experienced in life. That really, bringing those experiences and being able to talk it through to the forefront, those experiences, that is a huge component of reading that we often overlook. That makes all the difference in the world when you can get a kid to express a deep critical thought about something they've read. And that comes through just everyday talking. Talk to your kids. It will make them better readers.
Yeah, I say this on the show. I've been saying it for the 3 years that we've been on the show, with over 700 episodes. And one of the things I say over and over again, reading with your kids, it's the beginning of a conversation that can last a lifetime. And I can sit down, I can tell you very, very proudly that my daughter, who is 23, was home last night, and she is a big fan of RuPaul. And we sat down and watched the UK version of Drag Race, and we had this great conversation about it. And it wasn't just about the show, but it was what this brings up and and we just had these conversations, and it was wonderful. And I know that the conversation that we had last night started 23 years ago when we first sat down and read our first book together.
Uh-huh. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Hey, please tell us, what else can we find if we go to your website and find out more about your company, Just Like Me?
So if you go to readjustlikeme.com, because that's I'll just spell it out, readjustlikeme.com, what you'll find are a plethora of different children's books, from different, that represent different cultures, different backgrounds, different, ability levels. Because again, we try to represent all different children, all diverse cultures, all ethnic backgrounds. So you'll find a bunch of different books there. You'll also find there, things that we've done, in the news and workshops and where you can see us, and how to bring our books to your school or events that we do. The other thing that we do work with authors who are looking to create ways to make their books more marketable to schools. So that's actually a new service that we've been working with a bunch of different authors to help them get supplemental guides to get them so that they can go to schools and actually market their books, so they can do what you do and go into schools and be able to go back year after year after year. So those are just a few of the things that you'll see if you go to the www.readjustlikeme.com.
And before we go, we talked a lot, especially earlier on, of the value of kids being able to see characters like themselves in the pages of books. Talk for just a little bit, how important is it for a kid, a typical kid in the suburbs, to see African-American characters, see Asian characters?
I am so glad you brought that up, because, so it's extremely important. One of the things that we say all the time is our books are not just for kids of color. If you are a person who lives in Iowa and all you watch is the news, you would think that someone who has a headscarf on is a terrorist. But if you go, there's one of my favorite book series it's called Maya and Neil, and written by a couple in Chicago, and they partner with Just Like Me, and they have a bunch of different books that explains what the headscarf means, what the different holidays are, like what is Ramadan, what is Eid, what is Holi, what is Diwali, and what do they do when they celebrate them, like where, and it gives kids who, if you would never, so that when you happen to be, maybe you're in Iowa and your family goes on vacation, and while you're on vacation to a more diverse area, you see someone who doesn't look like you will not immediately go, ooh, that's a bad person. Mm-hmm. You'll go, oh, I read a book with a person who looked like that. Mm-hmm. I know why they're dressed like that. It's because they believe this, and this is important to them. And I know it has nothing to do with terrorism. They're actually peace-loving people. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so important, especially, there are still pockets of America where it is very possible to live your entire life and not see anybody who doesn't look like you. Mm-hmm. And so for those areas, and that's not a slight on them, that's just their reality.
Sure.
So It's so important to be able to have opportunities for them to see different things as well, so that when they do get confronted by it, they have a sense of I guess the word I'm looking for is comfortableness. They're comfortable with it, and it's not, oh my God, I'm so scared, I've never seen that before. Right. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Well, it's really, really important, and we say it all the time. A book is this magical thing that can take you into the past. It can take you on a trip to another culture. It can introduce you to somebody who seems really different and give you a chance to see that, no, they're just like me.
Exactly. What a great tie in there, Jed. Good job.
Well, I have a feeling, you mentioned that I raised issues that we can have all these different shows on. I have a feeling that this is just our first visit, and I'm looking forward to the next time that you come back on the show.
I would love that. That would be awesome.
We've been speaking to the author of Nathaniel English and Leaders of the Revolution. She's also the driving force behind ReadJustLikeMe.com, Michelle Person. Michelle, thanks so much for being part of our show.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Kathy Seaman. Kathy is an internationally respected educator. She is a master of reading diagnostics, and she is going to be sharing with us some of the findings that she recently presented at the World Literacy Summit. You don't want to miss it. It really is a fascinating conversation. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, I want to thank my guest, Michelle Person. Be sure to check out Just Like Me books and also her book, Nathaniel English and Leaders of the Revolution. Also want to thank my just incredible team, my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my awesome author, Ambassador Peggy Cotto. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you for subscribing to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.